Welcome back to No Fly Zone. We are here for part 2 of our Skinwalker Ranch two-part series we're doing. Outline that KC did that we're going in depth on. We do have a returning guest with us, Yvette.
Hey.
She's out in California, west of the Rockies. You're on the air. Hopefully our listeners heard the first episode, so they already know who you are. We'll have you here to finish this episode with us. And Kristen, did you want to recap on what we covered briefly in the first episode and what we're doing today?
Absolutely. So in our first episode, we talked a lot about the history behind the ranch, including the many phenomena experienced by Terry Sherman and his wife, Gwen, while they lived at the ranch for, I want to say, about 2 years they lived there. A lot of the history and lore behind the Uintah Basin and the Skinwalker, Fort Duchesne, the Indian tribes, the Navajo Indian tribes, and the bloody conflict that kind of brewed between them and ended up culminating in a lot of these legends and myths and curses being born. Today, we are going to dive a little bit more into the show we all know and love. I know we talked about that a bit at the tail end of our last episode, and we're going to get a little more specific on the ownership of the ranch here in the recent years, investigation attempts, and the scientific equipment and experiments currently being conducted / used at the ranch in order to study what's happening there.
Awesome.
Let's see. So I'm going to pick up with, as the investigation continues, some of the research attempts going on there. As we previously talked about, prior to the Shermans taking up residency at the ranch, it had sat empty for about 7 years. So when they arrived, they experienced every possible paranormal encounter imaginable. So we have UFOs, cattle mutilations, poltergeist activities, and the Skinwalker sightings almost daily, to include a shit ton of other things. I did mention that I am attempting to read the entire book. I'm about halfway through it. It's pretty wild. I have to recommend it to people. It's one thing to read the Shermans experienced cattle mutilations while living at the ranch, and then another thing completely to read the actual experience of them describing the way that they found the animal and what they observed and who was with them and their attempts to understand it, and the fact they would do these necropsies and forensic studies of the animal and find nothing conclusive that made any sense. I mean, it's really a good read. Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to kind of like remind whoever did watch part 1, how you were saying yesterday about the links and stuff in there. You guys should really go check it out. I did check it out today. It does have all the pictures of what happened to the cows and everything. It's interesting as hell, because you're looking at it and it's like, what the fuck, like how this happened. So I do highly recommend you guys check it out. It has a bunch of information, and like Casey said, it goes into details.
Did you have any thoughts on that? Like, what were your thoughts watching or looking? I don't know how much of the report you read.
I was just like I was like, what the fuck? That is trippy. Like, because okay, there's no blood. Like, none whatsoever. Like, you see the cow. I don't know if I could go on like graphic and stuff, but you see the cow, like the eye is literally gone, and it looks like an actual cookie cutter was placed in the eye and something sucked it out, and there's like zero blood. And then how you describe the hair, like how it was cut almost perfectly. It's like there's nothing that can do that. So my thing is like, what? Well, we don't have any technology that I know of that can do shit like that. So it's like, what the fuck? And then when I saw the videos you sent me, that I'm sure they're in the link, it makes you really think like, what is going on up there? Which, in my opinion, makes the books and everything a lot more fascinating. So I highly recommend you guys check out the links.
Good shit. And that's kind of the first place my mind goes when I'm hearing a story like this and seeing evidence like that, is what do we have? What do we know of as humans on this planet with our technology that could theoretically even do this? I don't know of anything.
Exactly. I've never heard of anything like that before.
I will make sure that you guys have access to these reports of the cattle mutilations. I had never, and I did mention this last episode, but I had never gone into detail on what a cattle mutilation was or looked like, specifically what is categorized as a phenomena of a cattle mutilation, not just a wild animal attacking a cow, which happens, but specifically a very strange, systematic, almost delicate, almost surgical destruction of this animal. Like, one of the ones I was reading earlier today was, there was a time when Tom Sherman actually became ranch manager. We just talked about this. And he calls the scientific team when NIDS was in control of the ranch and says, hey, they just got a newborn calf. We need to get you out here right now. And this is in the middle of winter, by the way. So the team was not currently in residency at the ranch. They were flying back and forth from Nevada to the ranch because of the extreme weather during the winter there. So this was like, I believe, in January of like maybe 97 or 98. And a calf had just been born, and it had been killed while the Shermans were a couple hundred yards away from it. Maybe this was in the spring. I'm not sure. I'm questioning now my memory. And a femur of the calf had been completely ripped off and was like 10 feet away. But the rest of the calf had been it had been exsanguinated, which means it had been completely drained of every single drop of blood in the body. All the internal organs had been removed. They estimated the calf was about 80 pounds originally, but now it's about 40 pounds with all its parts missing. And the legs were like splayed, like someone had delicately, first of all, they ripped off a femur, but then they also just delicately moved the legs away from the body in this almost perfect shape and splayed open the ribs, and eyes had been removed and the internal organs had been removed, and not a single drop of blood was anywhere in the area. Again, all of this happened in complete silence while these Shermans were like a couple hundred yards away, if that, because it was birthing season. So they were keeping close eyes on the cows and kind of helping out if they were having tough births. So just the description of this particular mutilation is just wild. I'm like, there's no physical way that can be done, just in general, let alone without any blood.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, like you said, without the blood, and just for the precision and to be that close to them for this to occur and not hear a sound like that's scary.
Wild. It's freaking, I mean, again, I had never looked into this, and as I'm looking into it, I'm like, the more like mysterious it gets, I'm just like, there's like we were talking about again yesterday, there are NIDS reports that include very detailed photographs of the injuries to these animals. A lot of times the ears will be completely cut off, but then they will do like a microscopic up close photograph of the cut itself. And you can see the surgical precision of the way that the hair is cut. I mean, in case there's any doubt that people still think this could be an animal, unless you know an animal that can surgically remove an ear and also does not want to just take a little bite while they're, I don't know of anything that could possibly do this shit.
It screams intelligence, higher intelligence.
Oh yeah.
Because if I may real quick, I'm looking at the pictures right now actually, and it's, I understand a lot of skeptics can say, well, it could easily be explained by like a creature coming in and trying to eat it. It's like, no, I've personally seen pictures of mutilated animals by other animals. You know what I mean? And there's just a bloody mess. Like there's everywhere. This one, like this particular one that I'm looking at, it's like, it's so clean. It looks fake. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it looks like it's been like wherever it's literally just bones, and it looks like it's been there for a while, but yet the head and whatever legs is left, it looks like it just died like within an hour or two. You know what I mean? And then I also wanted to bring up the, how you brought up yesterday, the genital parts that were, taken off. When I saw the picture, that I was like, damn, that's some good work. Like I was actually impressed. I'm like, not even my dog that I got spayed, like, I was like, wow. It's just, how do you, you know what I mean? It's like that was just like clean cut. Like I was amazed. I think I was more impressed and shocked. It was just like,
and then again, a lot of times these are adult, several 1,000-pound animals who this is happening to. This is not like a small animal that a human or any group of humans could control. While, I mean, first of all, just performing this level of precision in an outdoor environment is difficult anyways, plus controlling an animal that size is difficult, plus no blood anywhere, plus no tracks anywhere, plus complete silence. Like, the combination of these things is mind-blowing. I hope you guys all get a chance, if you're not squeamish, to look at these photos, because in case you need a visual aid to drive home the weirdness of what we're talking about, this will do it. And these are not photos taken by a Hollywood prop team that hasn't added the fake blood yet. These are a team of scientists paid by Robert Bigelow, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, during the time that NIDS was conducting their research at the ranch. So Robert Bigelow, like we said, he purchased the ranch and self-funded the Natural Institute for Discovery Science, and he sought to bring a logical and scientific explanation to uncovering the truth behind these mysteries, where prior to this, it was not only rare for there to be a more logical and scientific approach to the unknown, but it was nearly impossible, because if you can imagine how reluctant people might be to fund a scientific endeavor such as this, most people are not going to give money to that kind of endeavor. They're just not, because it sounds so wild and far out there. It's not scientifically validated field of research.
And
so this guy comes along,
name to be on something or get a return on investment. And there's
true, and there's almost no guarantee you're going to get any return on investment when you're talking about stuff like UFOs and ghosts and cattle mutilation and Native American cursed witches wandering the land, haunting you. Like, nobody in their right mind would be throwing money at this, except for Bob Bigelow, the man, the myth, the legend.
And if I could just point something out real quick, if we haven't mentioned it, in regards to like the pictures and everything that was, presented as evidence, if you will, like you said, nobody's just going to want to throw money out there, especially, you think of, like Native American witchcraft, things like that. People are going to laugh at you. So when if they're bringing this type of evidence that's in the link that you provided, it's like, clearly there's got to be something going on. So this is some real shit, so that's the way I took it. Like, clearly something's going on and they're taking it serious, which just kind of puts me on high alert. Like, is there any more areas like Skinwalker Ranch? Like, you have the Bermuda Triangle, so it's like, what else is out there in the universe? You know what I mean?
What am I thinking of? There's a place in the Bridgewater Triangle. Have you heard of that?
I think so.
It's in like the New England area.
I think
they
so.
Have a shit ton of. It's more paranormal activity. Yeah, Brett.
Is there one called Devil's Triangle that's out by Japan as
yes.
well?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's a few places, and I'd hope that in later episodes we're able to get into those. I will provide for you guys a accurate as possible timeline of the ownership of the ranch. Originally, it was like plots of land given to a local Ute tribesman named Monk Chavanaugh, and that is who we popularly know, or tentatively know, I'll say, as the first person to formally own the land now known as Skinwalker Ranch. There was some leasing and kind of parceling up of the different pieces of this 512-acre plot for several years. It wasn't until, I want to say the Myers, Kenneth and Edith Myers, were the first ones to fully homestead the entire ranch. There were several other people involved, including Christopher and Benton Locke, who I believe Benton is Christopher's grandson. And they had some early reports of sightings and different things happening on the ranch, but there were people living on the different homesteads and homesteading different parts of the ranch. So it became one full piece. And I want to say 61, about there, when the whole ranch was kind of consolidated into one. So I'm going to make sure you guys have that. It's a little bit of a confusing journey to try to trace ranch ownership, because that was important to me to verify these people did live here and did have, not somebody telling a story. There's somebody who actually owned or lived on the ranch. So Kenneth and Edith Myers, they leased one of the homesteads on Skinwalker Ranch originally in 1934. Benton Locke lived on the western portion of the ranch this time, and the Myers lived on the ranch for 6 decades in total, purchasing Locke's portion officially in 1961 before they sold the ranch to the Shermans, which is kind of what snowballed this whole thing. So we've talked about a little bit about the Sherman story. Their story is not over yet because, as we mentioned, Tom Terry, they refer to him as both. Anyways, he did end up agreeing after selling the ranch to the Bigelow NIDS Foundation. He did come back to be ranch manager and kind of firsthand guide these guys through their attempts at investigating the land. But we want to talk about Robert Bigelow for a minute. Who is this guy? He's like the Tony Stark of fucking UFO exploration. He's something else, man. And the more you read about this guy, kind of like the weirder and more fascinating he gets. He's like a Elon Musk OG kind of character. He's got some very strange, always been a little eccentric. He hasn't really given video interviews. He's always just kind of been doing his own thing, throwing money at whatever he fucking wants. And it has paid off for him. So reports indicate, and we're talking about a good article I found. Again, I'll link all of this for you guys. I don't want to just be throwing info at you with no way to verify, because I'm a stickler for that. I'll do a big blog post with all of my sources and citations and all that. But early reports today indicate that he decided early in life to pursue a career in space travel, but his path really wasn't that much. It wasn't that direct. He kind of meandered around a bit before landing on that. He grew up in Las Vegas, spent his time at the University of Nevada, Reno, and then he got a business degree at Arizona State. And commercial real estate provided a means to an end, so he continually expanded budget suites until selling most of his interests as prices peaked just before the Great Recession in 2008.
Couldn't time that any better.
I know. That was when I fucked off from California forever.
That was a smart move.
And that's about the time, right? God. Be like, clock ticking to my birthday. Oh, fuck this, I'm out of here. Bags are already packed. So that's about the time he won the $10 million contract for BAAS, which is Bigelow Advanced Aerospace something. I can't believe I don't have that acronym in here. That's on me, guys. So along the way, he founded Bigelow Aerospace in 1999. His expandable Genesis modules, developed without government funding, caught NASA's interest and eventually led to a beam module addition to the International Space Station in 2016. So this guy is doing he's making some serious moves in aerospace engineering, free of the government, like on his own, which is pretty wild. That's literally like, I'm like, Tony Stark is Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. So Bigelow continued to develop the technology and eventually expressed a goal of a space hotel by the year 2022 as privatization of space missions became a reality. So apparently he had made kind of a grand promise to launch this. Not only launch it, but I guess would be able to book rooms on his flying space hotel by the year 2022. As you can see, that has not come to fruition. So I hope he keeps trying. I would love to fuck off from this planet. Oh, let's see. So we mentioned, I'm going to hit some of the high points of his timeline. A full one will be provided because I kind of overdid it on this outline. I'm not going to lie to you. I went full send. Everything seems important when you're talking about this shit. Details seem important when there's so few details. So we already talked about in 1995, he funded the National Institute for Discovery Science to fund the research and study of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics, most notably ufology. The organization researched cattle mutilation and black triangle reports, ultimately attributing the latter to secretive advanced aircraft operated by the military. He would actually abandon this institute in 2004, but only to move on to bigger and better things. So 96, so the year after he founds NIDS, is when he purchases the ranch. And he did this with the express interest of giving NIDS, his newly formed institute, kind of a field base to like spread their wings and do their thing and really dig in to something where the chances are super good they're actually going to encounter what they're looking for, right?
Full jurisdiction.
Right. It looks like Brett's power just went out or something. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, my power just went out. It's called cats.
So, I'm trying to scroll through this guy has done so much. This guy, I recommend that if you want a little interesting guy to look into, this is the one. And I'll provide this information. But again, this inflatable space hotel, I had to throw this in here. The plan is part of a partnership with United Launch Alliance, and the project is estimated to cost $2.3 billion in total. The cost of a 3-day stay in the spatial hotel is estimated at $5 million.
Oh, that's it? Oh, okay.
Know, that's
chump change, yeah.
Pocket change. Yeah.
Right now, write a check.
So we did talk a little bit yesterday about how our favorite redhead, Travis Taylor, came out as the chief scientist of the UAP program. So Bigelow actually had his fingers in that as well. So in December 2017, Bigelow was reported by the New York Times to have urged Senator Harry Reid to initiate what later became the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a government study which operated from 2007 to 2012, tasked with the study of UFOs. According to the New York Times, Bigelow said that he was absolutely convinced that extraterrestrial life exists and that they have visited Earth. And this, again, I'll provide the full shit here to you guys. So that's not the same. Travis Taylor, I believe, was in that AATIP program, but now he's with the other program, which is also a great acronym. And we're going to get to that here in a minute. But any questions on Bigelow? Did I glaze over anything too much?
So this is a guy that was self-made, self-successful, had a hobby that he had unlimited FU money that he could dump into it.
Basically,
honestly, yeah. Which I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing. Imagine having unlimited money. I'd be like, I'm going to fight a ghost before I die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. There I go. Nobody can stop me. Become ungovernable. So, Bigelow, if you do end up reading this original book, the book that started it all, Bigelow founded NIDS, moved them onto the ranch to do their thing. He enlisted Tom and Edith Sherman. It was harder to get his wife. Like, she only came back on the ranch, I believe, like, maybe 2 or 3 times after selling it because she hated the ranch so much. They'd really been tormented, and they go into detail in this book. So he brings them on. They have cattle there basically to act as biosensors, which if you've seen The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, they do that as well because dogs and cattle will react to things before humans can sense them. Because, I don't know, maybe our predator instincts have just died out over the years. So NIDS was on this ranch for quite a while conducting their experiments. Now, a big issue that they ran into while they were here is the parameters of what they are looking for, what they are looking to study and report, is quantifiable, observable, and repeatable situations. You know, an experiment isn't really an experiment unless you can repeat it, right? And vary
the paranormal does not like to fit in that box of science.
So that was a repeated frustration for the massive team of scientists at the ranch. So there was a huge team of investigators, huge team of scientists. They would pair up. There were 2 patrols happening per night on the ranch during, you know, good weather, basically. And then there was a massive team of, it's like a board of scientific advisors who would essentially review everything that these teams produced. So they were doing their best to find things to document. They were using, at the time, state-of-the-art equipment, cameras, spectrometers, all sorts of shit. The problem is they would have almost infinite encounters. Their ability to document and report and analyze these encounters was almost non-existent, and therefore the encounters were essentially useless to the team in a scientific kind of context, right? And it became one of those things where they started to feel like whatever was going on at the ranch was almost like doing this on purpose. Like,
well, that goes back to the higher intelligence, you know, messing with you, cat and mouse.
I mean, a lot of the official scientists on the NIDS team did make comments like that. Like, something is just fucking with us, something's messing with us. Like, we can only, so for example, a cattle mutilation. As you can see in the NIDS reports, that is something that they can observe, analyze, do forensic analysis, do necropsies, do photographs, do all sorts of different tests. They can do quite a bit of experimentation and documentation. Brett, are you playing with a Velcro thing?
No.
I hate you so much.
You're going to kick your ass.
Anyways, sitting there like, rip. Sounds like he's waxing his legs. It's like, all right, maybe wait for later to do that. I don't kink shame, but, you know, wait. I can hear you. How embarrassing for you.
Continue.
So, other things were not as documentable, if that's a word. were not as easily documented as cattle mutilations. Not something they could photograph. The teams constantly relay their efforts to photograph things such as lights in the sky, orbs. The description of the team who saw the portal to the other dimension open up is pretty bone-chilling, actually. I definitely wrote that one off because everyone's like, one of the NID scientists saw a portal open and a creature crawl out of it. But when you actually read it, it's actually like, well, spooky as all fuck. They essentially describe, there's two people witnessing this, but only one sees the creature come out. They describe a small light that appears, slowly gets bigger. One of the guys is staring at it with infrared binoculars, and he starts freaking. He starts panicking, right? He's like, it's a tunnel. Oh my God, it's a fucking tunnel, like freaking out. And he's like, there's something inside of it. There's something coming out. Oh my God, something is coming out right now. And he's like describing to this guy who's trying to take photos. They have like a long exposure camera. They weren't able to collect anything useful from that camera besides like a blurry dot. You know what I mean? But the story of the way that they told it was pretty eerie, pretty creepy. And they described some kind of creature with quote unquote no face, 400 to 500 pounds, about 6 feet tall, come crawling out of the hole and walking away, and then it closed behind it onto the ranch. So super.
Wait, was
weird
it like
shit.
on 2 feet or 4 feet, or did it say, or?
They said it's walking away. So one scientist is relaying this information to the other scientist. So one guy is trying really hard with a long exposure camera to capture this thing. So he's constantly sitting there, like increasing the exposure of the film to try and make sure that they get something on the camera. The other guy is like watching it through infrared binoculars, describing what he's seeing, and it shook him so badly. He's like, I'm just fucking done. I'm just out of here. Like,
just hearing it, it's like, you know.
So I do want to tell another story. This is why I asked you earlier if you've seen the new Predator movie, which is called Prey. It's on Hulu. My favorite Predator movie so far by quite a stretch. 10 out of fucking 10. Excellent. So the reason that I brought that up is because prior to listening to this part of the book, I had been I'd watched that movie while I was working on this outline. And then again, I'm reading this book and they mention a predator-like encounter. And I believe this was in the time when the Sherman couple and their son and daughter still lived and owned the ranch. And this was when the article had just come out. So different reports were coming out locally about the strange activity on the ranch. And it was drawing some unwanted attention from like thrill seekers and tourists. So there's one story told by Tom Sherman where he's out working on the ranch or just like in the front of a farmhouse with his son, and they see like a strange car pull up, and this big dude gets out and he's like, I've heard so much about the ranch. And so the Shermans were like, fuck you, this is private property, like this isn't a tourist spot, like, because they wanted to move out here for privacy, and now they have all this unwanted invasion of privacy. So this guy apparently convinces them. He's like, I just want to go somewhere on the ranch and meditate. Just let me meditate on the ranch. And apparently he somehow charms them enough that they're like, fine, jump on in the truck. We'll take you somewhere on the ranch and let you do your thing. So
Dylan from Whole Foods wants to go meditate out in the woods.
Yeah, they describe him as like this giant, like 6'2" burly blonde guy who wants to fucking meditate. I'm like, that's weird. God. Sounds like he's about to fucking kill you. Sounds like he's about to take out like a little folded gun and put on a little silencer in it. He's a government hitman, but he just wants to meditate. It's cool, guys. So, this is such a creepy story, though. So it's broad daylight. It's like morning, early afternoon type daylight, and they take him out to this field, and they take him driving through the ranch, and he says, hey, I like this field. Let's stop. Can I stop here? And they're like, sure, buddy, whatever the fuck you want. So they let him out, and he just walks out to like the middle of the field and like stands there with his arms out and like closes his eyes, and he's just like soaking up the sun and like doing his little yoga. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. He's meditating in his mind. So Terry and his son are just watching this guy like, God, like, look, this is the kind of crackpots we have to deal with now. And again, this is Terry Sherman's description. Really fucking creepy. They see something at the tree line at the edge of the field. And by something, they're talking about the best I can describe it, and the best that they can describe it, is, so you know the fucking camouflage that the Predator wears? Like that.
Oh, shit.
Like,
Nope.
a shift, just a something, a blurry, shapeless something wrong, no color to it. It's just it's that, like,
so you could see it move.
And apparently,
stuff, right?
They could see it move. So him and his son are like, hey, do you see that? And then apparently, this is where it gets really crazy. So it's at the edge of the field, like at the tree line, and it comes shooting out of the tree line towards this guy who's meditating at like 50 to 60 miles an hour. And it's still shimmering. And it's just a distortion of air as opposed to any, like, tangible shape. And it comes directly at the guy. So, of course, they're freaking out, like, oh my God. And apparently it comes to and you can see the grass moving, but you can't see anything. Just like in the Predator, right? Which is what I was thinking when I was listening to this. I'm like, oh my God. So apparently it comes within a couple of inches of this man and abruptly stops. And then it, like, screams at him. It, like, lets out, like, a bone-chilling roar. To the point where this guy falls backwards, like, 10 feet and starts screaming and crying hysterically. And then the thing just is still roaring. Like, it's like this long, extended, absolute, like, crazy loud roar. And then it just fucking stands there briefly and then shoots back. Like, just leaves again. And this guy was freaking out. Apparently he grabbed him to Terry Sherman, like, just grabbed him and was crying on him and wouldn't let him go. And Terry was like, you let me fucking go or I'm gonna, like, hit you. Like, you're just gonna get the fuck off me. And the guy's like, I'll let you go if you take me back to my car right now. And then this place is cursed. I'm never coming back here. Blah. So that guy leaves, just rattled as fuck, obviously. And then, of course, later on, the family is watching the Predator movie, and both Terry and his son start freaking out. They're like, that's what we saw. That's what we fucking saw in the field that came at that guy. So,
that's trippy.
Pretty creepy story.
That's really trippy. Like,
I'm just, like, imagining it stopping, like, 6 inches from you and just screaming in your face. Like,
well, and also I picture this guy with his, like, eyes closed, looking up at the sky, you know, like, just completely oblivious.
Yeah, he apparently noticed nothing. And he was, like, down a little ways from them, so he couldn't hear them as they were like, well, what the fuck is that?
So did he, like,
but yeah, they
fly, like, 10 feet, or he just, like, fell? Or
they said that he startled, like, fell backwards 10 feet. So I don't know if it doesn't sound
that
like
makes
he was physically,
sense.
Doesn't sound like he was physically touched. But it's funny because the way they describe this guy is, like, they're like, he is a giant of a man, like, a 6'2" big dude, and then he's sobbing, crying because of this encounter, which, I mean, I think anyone would be, to be honest.
Yeah.
And here's something that I was thinking about while listening to a lot of this stuff. Imagine that you, Yvette, or you, Bret, went out in the wilderness right now and had an encounter like this. What, if anything, would you tell people about it?
I probably would tell people about it, but I probably would always have the lights on and never go outside again.
I mean, it's impossible to verify, right? Impossible. There's scientifically no proof that it ever happened.
It's just word of mouth, and it, like, how could I honestly would be very, like, should I not? No one's gonna believe me. You know what I mean?
That's kind of what I was thinking, because me, the skeptic, the disbeliever and everything, I'm just imagining if I were to have some kind of encounter. First of all, would I tell anyone about it? Or would I talk myself out of believing it ever happened?
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself doing that.
Well, your brain could also do a trauma response.
That's true, too.
I mean, in theory, yes, but something ridiculous. There's certain things that appear automatically as a threat that your brain is more likely to, I think, bury, as opposed to things your brain just can't fucking fathom. You just can't understand. Something really strange that isn't necessarily super threatening as much as the creepy factor really comes from our lack of understanding what exactly it is, why it happened. So I don't know. It's just something that I put myself these theoretical questions a lot, such as if this were to happen to me, or what if this, or what came, just different thought exercises that happen while I'm listening to these stories, either on YouTube or whatever I'm reading. Because a lot of times I'm doing both, where I'll have a video on and I'm reading something at the same time.
Sensory overload.
One thing I do find a little curious is that I would like to know personally is, so the guy goes somewhere, I guess nowhere specific in the ranch or whatever, and he starts meditating. And then I know that the family, they have dealt with, things in the past or whatever in the ranch. But from what I've read and heard and what you were saying, they never actually experienced anything quite like this. So my question is, if this guy went and started meditating, literally just standing there or whatever, doing nothing, no threat or nothing, why would it almost sounded like whatever it was got almost like offended or bothered by, you get what I'm saying? Like threatened by this dude.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's like, it's almost like territorial.
That was a ranch haunting demon. I too would not like meditators.
Yeah, exactly. But my thing is like, what? So, because I don't meditate, but from what I hear, like meditation, like I guess it takes you like to another, whatever. But so, like, I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know. Like, my thing is like, what made it so this thing or this whatever it was could feel threatened by this guy?
It could be
question.
Energy or frequency being.
I mean, because they.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because later on when the NIDS team is there, there's multiple occasions when they actually will attempt meditation in order to provoke a response of some kind from the ranch, because I believe that the way that they described it is that sometimes if someone attempts to meditate, it will provoke a response, but it happens too few times to be considered like a reliable trigger, but it has happened. So it's something that even the scientists, because imagine that you spend all this time, money, energy going to school and, becoming an atheist and educating yourself. Because I firmly believe education will actually lead you to atheism. Like I just, the more you know, the less you believe the bullshit. So, and then you come out to a place like this and everything you know about studying, quantifiable, verifiable, observable, documented research is just fucking out the window, and you're like, well, maybe we should try meditating. I don't fucking know. Like, imagine that you reach that point in your scientific career where you have to like throw things at the wall like that. It's kind of fun though. It's kind of like a little bit of a creative exercise in a field with a lot of creativity. So there's some really fascinating stories about the Bigelow era, as it's called, during the time when NIDS was at the ranch attempting to do their research. And they did some research, but for the most, a lot of the things that they encountered there and the stories they have can't, by their own admission, cannot count as research, cannot count as experimentation. It's something that they can tell a story about, but not something they can document and analyze, if that makes sense. Like the sites of the glowing orbs and just so many different things. Again, a really good read. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But that brings us up to current day, when Brandon Fugal was the one who ended up purchasing this ranch. So we did mention that he's now the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch. In fact, we've quoted him a few times actually talking about Bigelow, but who the fuck is he, right? And I'm like, I want to see what this guy says about himself. So I went to his little LinkedIn profile, which is cute. So per his LinkedIn, he is a prominent business leader, recognized as a market leader nationwide, previous EY Entrepreneur of the Year, Western Region, and chairman and co-owner of Colliers International in Utah. His dabbling in Skinwalker Ranch, by the way, is barely a footnote in this profile. So it's a multi-paragraph list of accolades with a list, like at some point there's like a list of the properties he owns, including a famous 512-acre ranch in Utah, and then it just continues with commas. Like, it's just barely mentioned. So in 2016, as we know, he purchased Skinwalker Ranch from Bigelow in order to investigate and study the strange and unexplainable phenomena that had been reported there for like more than 2 centuries at this point. So he initially bought the company through a shell company, bought the property through a shell company and wanted to keep his identity secret. In 2006, he purchased and read a copy of Keller and Knapp's book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is a lot of the stories I'm telling you are directly from that book. He didn't think much more about the ranch at all until 2015, when 2 science advisors of another Utah real estate magnate, Robert Bigelow, approached him. Bigelow had been funding the investigation at the ranch since he purchased it, And Keller was Bigelow's lead investigator, who was one of the co-authors of the book. So Fugel says he had developed a relationship with the two science advisors during another effort that he'd been involved in about a decade ago. And the advisors asked him whether he'd be willing to entertain the prospect of a potential joint venture or acquisition of the property for the purpose of advancing the research beyond what Mr. Bigelow had done for 20 years. And this is a quote from Fugel. He says, "I disclosed to them that I was approaching the topic as a healthy skeptic, and that I had never seen a UFO, ghost, or anything of the sort. And I believe that there was most likely a natural, prosaic explanation for what had been reported in the book and on the property," Fugel said. "They were amused and shared with me the reality of what their investigation had revealed. They also disclosed that the ranch had been part of a 5-year Pentagon black budget program studying the UFO phenomenon, and that, although the results of the investigation remain classified and confidential, how do I say this? The phenomenon is real." Now, fast forward, Fugel says he is no longer skeptical that something mysterious is happening on the ranch. "People ask me all the time whether I'm now a believer based on what we have seen and recorded during my ownership of the ranch. The honest, most direct answer I can provide is that I am not a believer. I am an experiencer. I know for a fact that it is real, and I have witnessed with my own eyes, with other credible witnesses at my side, what can only be described as daylight sightings of exotic craft over Skinwalker Ranch."
The plot thickens.
All right, so that is somebody who, of course, kind of gave up the Mystery Act later on, and he was actually urged by his science team, "Hey, man, you need to come out of the closet here. Like, I think it will lend a certain validity and credibility to what we're doing if you just put your name on this and come out and ask people, hey, like, help us out. What do you know? What can you do to help us with this? Put your name on this thing." So I don't remember what year he came out, but he did kind of do a whole smoke and mirrors thing for quite a while, where he would give the interviews with like the voice distorter and, no face kind of thing, because he did not want his name on this shit. He did not want to be the UFO guy. But now,
but he wanted to be the UFO guy.
I mean, think about it though. You've made quite a bit of money doing legitimate business in real estate, being an entrepreneur. You've won all these awards. You are a prestigious and respected businessman. You also happen to be interested in whether or not UFOs are real, or not even UFOs. There's a shit ton of other things happening at the ranch besides UFOs. Do you want to risk undermining everything you've worked hard to build by being that crazy guy, right? Personally, I wouldn't care. No, I mean, I know that, but people will say that you're that crazy guy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the team / the cast of the show that we all love so much. It is my favorite show about this kind of thing. It's the most believable to me because, again, their focus is not the fucking exotic explanation, the high strangeness bullshit. It's science. And, of course, science is churning out some results that we can't understand or they can't understand, and they're much smarter than I am, which is just part of the fascination factor. But they're not just throwing ghost stories at you and letting you, get spooked. So we talked about Travis Taylor, right? He's an engineer and a best-selling author who holds PhDs in optical science and engineering, aerospace systems engineering, and master's degrees in physics and astronomy. So for the past 25 years, Taylor has worked on various high-tech programs for the Department of Defense and NASA. He is the newest member of this diverse and highly skilled team and brings a vast wealth of knowledge that will help him apply hard science in an effort to solve this incredible mystery, per his bio on the, History Channel little synopsis of the show. And then we did talk about the article that was published just a couple weeks ago. I will recap it if you haven't seen our last episode. Basically, he has kind of came out himself a little bit as working for the UAP Task Force, which is an organization created by Congress to evaluate UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. So he has been working as the chief scientist for the Pentagon's UAP Task Force, and the article describes him as essentially leading a double life by doing this, which seems pretty fucking dramatic to me. Like, obviously you probably signed some kind of NDA working for the fucking Pentagon. Why do you have to make this like a superhero alter ego thing? If you can't talk about it, you can't talk about it, right? So one of the primary jobs of the task force was to write a report to Congress summarizing the known evidence about UFOs. And the team had already created a classified briefing consisting of the most intriguing military encounters, starting with the now famous 2004 Tic Tac video. The task force whittled down a huge database into 144 of the very best cases, and Dr. Taylor did help write the final report. He says, we picked sources that we knew had a chain of custody of the data. And out of those 144 to 143 of them, we still couldn't figure out what they were, where they came from, and what their intent was. So it's a giant fucking unknown packet.
That's
sorry.
a huge telling saying like the government doesn't even know what this is.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that, and I'm talking just recently, the last maybe 5 years, we're finally peeling back some of that secrecy around these like kind of black budget programs that our government has been instigating to study UFOs that they've been trying so fucking hard to keep us from knowing about. And again, I think the earliest one that I know about for sure, I'm sure there's more, is 2017 when they kind of begrudgingly made some admissions about the truthfulness of a lot of these stories. And they're like, well, grinding their teeth, I guess we don't know what the fuck it is. And that's kind of peeled back even more as we go, where they're being a little hesitantly giving us a little more information about these task forces and programs, such as, what's it called again? Some kind of long acronym, UAP Task Force. All right, so we've gotten our primary characters out of the way. Bret, I don't believe, has seen this show, so he's not going to know some of these names, unfortunately.
I know, I recognize some of the names.
Do you?
I've read some books. I've seen some snippets on YouTube, and then I've listened to podcasts also. But I just haven't seen the show.
So this is my favorite guy. I just want to talk about him. His name is Bryant Arnold, but you can call me Dragon.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You will call me and they unironically call him Dragon through the entire... I fucking love this guy. So he's the chief security officer on Skinwalker Ranch. He's a trusted friend and advisor to Brandon Fugel for over 25 years. The vital part of day-to-day operations on the ranch, and he prevents any and all who may unwisely attempt to trespass on the grounds and assist the investigations to ensure safety at all times. Bryant is a licensed armed private security officer in the state of Utah and is recognized as an expert marksman and security specialist. So this guy's the one who wears like all black with a black hat and carries big old guns, and he's always like,
it wasn't a phase, Mom.
It wasn't a phase. I'm a security specialist. But he's so fucking funny, and I just love the name. I love his whole little
They never talk
persona.
about how he got that nickname, Dragon, huh?
I'm 99% sure he gave it to himself and doesn't even admit it. Like,
oh, that's the worst.
It's so... I don't know. He's so precious, though. Like, it's really funny because he gets all, like, concerned about stuff. He's, like, this big, tough, mean guy, and he's like, I'm really worried about this, guys. I just don't feel comfortable. Like, he's just, like... so like anal about all these little like security things, whereas I'd be like straight up a mad scientist, be like, if we die, we die. Let's go dig or do whatever.
He kind of reminds me like of the kind version of the Fire Blaster from Pixel. It's like it's Fire Blaster, you know. I don't know if you see, you know what I'm talking about. It's like the dragon, but I care, you know.
Yes.
He is a lovable person.
It's funny though because he is kind of like a little teddy bear. Like it's like he's very endearing somehow. Like I really like he's one of those guys that like as a cop I would make fun of a lot. Like I'm a security motherfucker. Like I'll just pause here to give you a fun cop story.
Paul Blart.
That's not a cop. Little rent-a-cop. Little fucking Segway cop. Fucking, oh my god. So I had to go work, didn't have to, but I unwisely picked up, we call it an off-duty, which is like a private business will pay a cop to come to a location for a certain number of hours and perform essentially security, but they need more than a security officer. The funny thing is a lot of these places already have a full-time security guy, and these guys there's just nothing like goofier and cringier in the world than like a security guard who takes himself seriously. So I show up to this bar to do my kind of covering for a buddy who this is his usual gig, and I'm like, oh, fucking fine, I'll take it for the night. And I already know it's going to be wild because in a marked patrol car, have nowhere to park. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be wild. And then I walk up to the door of this bar, and there is a guy. He's a tall dude. He's like probably 6'4". He's wearing all black, okay? I'm trying to describe. I actually have pictures of this guy. Like, I snuck some pictures of him because he looks so fucking ridiculous. All black. He's got, like, the off-brand, like, Amazon vest going with all the Molly on it. And every single place where you can put an accessory is accessorized. He's got fingerless gloves. He's got... I think he had 2 tasers that he had made sure to tell me proudly that he had personally purchased himself, stuck to different parts of his vest. He had a Bowie knife, the length of my arm, strapped to the middle of his fucking back. He's wearing black BDUs with the cargo pockets, with a drop holster for his gun, these big old tactical combat boots. He's got a tactical, like, metal detector wand. This guy was so high speed, it hurts. He had, like, little fake security badges. Like, he was doing his goddamn hardest to look like a secret commando / cop. I do have pictures of this guy, by the way.
Wow.
Because I was sitting there watching him, like, take his life too seriously and, like, stop everyone coming up. I need to search you. And, like, doing this, like, super tactical searchy thing with the wand. And I was, like, sitting there with my phone, like, oh my God, I gotta take a picture. Like, I cannot fucking handle this guy. That's who he reminds me of, but in, like, a way that you actually like that kind of person, because guys who work security, they really, really want to be cops or something, or they want to be secret agents. I don't know what it is that they want to be, but it's something in their mind that's, like, this super tactical operator, and they'll, like, buy all sorts of gadgets and trinkets to, like, tactical themselves up. So they're really hard to take seriously. And so when I first started watching this show, I thought, oh my God, he calls himself Dragon. He's a fucking security guard. Here we go. But then, he is a
likable character. I will say that. Very, very likable.
Somehow, like, the character that I really thought I wasn't gonna like, I'm like, I would die for you. You're so fucking precious. Like,
aww. Love you too, sis.
Nope, definitely not talking about. Not talking about you. For those of you who didn't catch it on our episode that we posted last night, there is a poll on there which I suggest that you answer correctly, which is, how high was Bret during that episode? So feel free to go check out that episode and answer the poll. You can see if you agree with me. It's not going to be hard to figure out what my vote is, but, you know.
I'm staying out of that one. I'll just I'll email you my response so that way he doesn't know.
Well, I will say that 100% of the voters say I'm a trustworthy guy.
That's one voter.
But it's 100%.
Probably your girlfriend. God. We're going to just kind of nutshell some of these guys that you know from the show. We got Thomas Winterton, who's the ranch superintendent. He's pretty fun, too. He's got the little, like, Utah nerd thing. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's also a kind of fringe conspiracy theory that the Mormons are somehow involved in, covering shit up at this ranch, because apparently Brandon Fugall, who currently owns the ranch, was raised Mormon. And so there's a very thin, kind of hard to find undercurrent of conspiracy surrounding the current goings-on at the ranch, kind of suggesting that maybe there's some, like, Mormon influence, not verifiable or based in any fact besides the fact that, oh my God, Brandon Fugall, he grew up in the Salt Lake area and he's Mormon and all this shit. Like, who the fuck cares, honestly? Like, just throwing that in, that's a
interesting though if you think
kind
about
of a whisper in the rumor mill.
Wow.
We got, I know. At this point, there's almost nothing too crazy to throw into the pot. So we've got another one of my favorite characters, Eric Bard. And I love him because, Brett, you're familiar with Star Trek, right?
I mean, not to be dangerous.
You know who Spock is?
Well, yes.
God. Okay, well, Jesus. So he kind of reminds me, he tries really hard to come at this like a Spock. Like, he says multiple times, he's like, I'm not here to give opinions or form any opinions or anything. I'm just here to observe. That's it. He's the principal investigator and chief scientist on Skinwalker Ranch, and he has installed a cutting-edge surveillance system that constantly monitors the entire property, and he heads all investigations. So, having worked alongside Brandon on various scientific endeavors for the last decade, he brings a vast wealth of knowledge and his intense curiosity to the study of the strange phenomena reported on Skinwalker Ranch. That's his official little profile tagline. But I really like him because of the way that he approaches things with a zero bias. And by that I mean he can be showing the team like some absolute batshit crazy footage he's collected or some kind of crazy outcome. And the way that he presents it in the he's like Spock, okay? He's like, this might be a little interesting to you guys. Let me just pull this up and show it. And he'll just show you the most unhinged,
just like,
nightmare shit
about it,
that you can imagine. And like the way... So I admire him because I would like to be a Spock, but I'm definitely a fucking Captain Kirk. Okay? Like, I want to be Spock, but I'm Kirk. Like...
You're Kobayashi Maru.
Like, I am, though. I literally... That's my personality versus the personality I want to have. Like, I want to be like way more like fucking analytical, and I'm already pretty analytical, but like I want to be Spock-like, where I have no internal bias or personal emotions clouding my judgment. I want to be Eric Bard / Spock, but instead I'm over there trying to figure out how to Kobayashi Maru my life. Love that guy. Jim Morris is the manager for Skinwalker Ranch. He's less of a character. Usually they're wearing like that like Southwest blanket kind of vest thing. Candace Lindy and Tom Lewis. Mm-hmm.
A Baja jacket is, I think, the term you're looking for.
No, I'm not looking for that term. It's like, you know, like the saddle blanket, like
yes.
The New Mexico kind of saddle blanket pattern is just on the vest. It's like a vest over. It's like a cowboy thing.
I'll text
you. I don't
you.
think it's a Baja jacket. Is it a Baja jacket?
Sorry.
The fuck is that?
One thing I did want to bring up, if you don't mind, going back to Thomas. One thing I found very interesting in the show, season 1, where they wanted to dig, and he was the first one actually to object. He's like, no, because not that long ago, you know, we were digging and stuff, and then he started getting like headaches or something. And he was in so much pain on his head that he ended up going to the hospital. It turns out like part of his like skin or something was like actually detaching from the skull. So yeah, remember, and then it happened again.
So you're right.
Later on that season, you know, so it's like,
if I remember correctly, he had actually had a medical emergency. Prior to cameras being installed, he had a medical emergency that was supposedly caused by digging on the ranch, where I believe something swelled in his head or his brain that caused some detachment issues, and that flared up multiple times on the show where he had to go back. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is an interesting thing. And he's one who at multiple times on the show, if you watch, will experience physiological phenomena to the point where he will leave the ranch for his own health. He's like, I have to leave right now. But there's a point where they start receiving a like infrasound frequency of some kind that has such a profound effect. It's where they get hacked, quote unquote. Something hacks, quote unquote, hacks into their network, starts broadcasting a really strange frequency. Taylor has physiological reactions and gets sick. Thomas gets sick, and he actually physically leaves the ranch while this is going on. There's so many crazy things that happen there. The last two people we're going to mention are Candace Lindy and Tom Lewis. Candace is a noted anthropologist. She serves as a caretaker on the ranch, but she's also part of the team as far as observations go. But a big part of their job is to monitor their biosensors / the cattle on the ranch and the reactions to things and kind of keep things. It says they're chiefly responsible for monitoring the cattle as well as other exotic animals like the llamas that have been brought onto the ranch for research purposes. I also did mention Dr. John Alexander, who is part of Bigelow's team and is seen frequently on like Zoom calls on the current show. He's retired Army intelligence, worked for the DoD as a PhD. He was directly involved with the U.S. Army's Psychic Warrior Research Program and became one of the first employees of NIDS. And we're going to skip on to the technology. Finally got through that. Whew. Told you this was a meaty outline.
Yeah.
Bret, how's your pronunciation today?
Oh, doing great.
Do you want to try to talk about Satan?
Yeah, so we'll go with the technology part of Skinwalker Ranch, but Satan is short for Sentinel Assignment, Telemetry, and Notification. Satan functions as the hub of all technology on Skinwalker Ranch. Equipped with the latest in sensory technology, buried in a concrete bunker under Skinwalker Ranch, Satan has capabilities including, but not limited to, the following. Infrasonic recording, which is sounds below human hearing. Seismic geophones.
Hello?
Try to talk to your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had it close enough.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear me?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. It's better.
Yes, we can?
Yes, ma'am.
So this acronym, Satan, also has seismic geophones on it, a device that converts ground movement, velocity, into voltage, which are recorded constantly. The deviation of this measured voltage from the baseline value is called the seismic response and is analyzed for structure of the Earth. A notable example is the application of remote ground sensors. It also has radio frequency spectrum analyzers. These are test instruments used to look at signals in the frequency domain. Example, a plot of signal strength against frequency. So, yeah, that clears that up. Aircraft transponder receiver, an electronic device that receives transponder information from all aircraft. Aircraft have transponders to assist with identifying them on air traffic control radar.
And it's worth noting that there is a no-fly zone instituted above the ranch itself because it does mention they have an aircraft transponder receiver, which would pick up on traditional aircraft communication, I guess, that was being broadcasted. But obviously, they are not looking for traditional aircraft signals. They are trying to pick up on the multiple UAPs sighted above the ranch. And that's why you hear them multiple times on the show ask about air traffic, like making sure that there's no air traffic, right? They just double checking. So I do like the attention to detail for the scientific approach here.
And did they get, I'm guessing they got that cleared with the FAA, like to make it a no-fly zone?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I believe, and I'm not sure if it is a permanent no-fly zone, but it is at times definitely a no-fly zone. I don't know if it's constant, like permanently nobody's allowed. I would imagine for safety reasons, they probably should make it permanent.
Yeah, I would think.
I'm just not 100% on that.
So there's also magnetic sensors for transient frequencies. An active magnetic field sensor consisting of small electrical loop, 2 ferrite core transformers, and a balanced amplifier with a low input impedance. This device is able to measure fields in a broad range of frequencies and transients. The sensor provides a flat transfer function from approximately 600 Hz to 200 megahertz and high fidelity reproduction of pulses with a rise time of 2 nanoseconds. I believe that's the note you had there.
Good job. I'm proud of you.
Oh, for once. Software definable radios. These allow to pinpoint parts of radio frequency spectrum for analysis, like the origin of it. Electromagnetic spike detectors allow for sensing lighting and other major energy discharges and gathers location and distance information. So,
all right, so that made sense to you, right? All that.
lot of James Bond gadgets going on.
There are, and that's again what to me keeps me watching this show, where I would normally fall off pretty quickly from a show of this caliber, or what I assumed would be this caliber, is the science, the fact that they are using state-of-the-art, extremely high-tech sensors to collect and analyze data. This lends the credibility to me that I would need in order to suspend my disbelief for the things that they are experiencing and talking about. So another huge part of the show that we got to talk about is the surveillance at Skinwalker Ranch, which obviously you're moving on to a hotbed of phenomena. The first thing you're going to do is set up surveillance. So state-of-the-art cameras are where things at Skinwalker Ranch kind of start. The resident team of investigators and scientists are constantly updating the video and why do I want to say photography? Photography. I'm like stopping myself. I'm like, photography. Photography technology. Researchers employed dozens of cameras capable of reaching every single corner of the property. So we have a multitude of different kinds of cameras I'll hit on real quick. We have pan-tilt-zoom cameras, which are capable of remote directional and zoom control, commonly referred to as the robos, which is an abbreviation for, they're basically robotic cameras. Infrared and thermographic cameras, which we see footage from a lot on the show. An infrared camera, as we know, is a non-contact temperature measurement device. It just detects infrared energy emitted by whatever it is pointed at, transmitted or reflected by all materials at temperatures above absolute zero, and converts that energy factor into a temperature reading or thermogram. So that's a fancy way of saying those colors you're looking at represent temperatures. And then we, of course, have photomultiplier-based night vision cameras. Night vision device, or an NVD, as you'll hear them call it, is just for night or optical observation. It's an optoelectronic device that allows images to be produced in levels of light approaching total darkness. So the devices use components known as photomultiplier tubes to enable visibility in very low light scenarios. And the photomultiplier tubes use a lens to collect available light, including light from the infrared portion of the spectrum. So these are all the very, very high-tech cameras that allow us to view most of the things that happen there at night as we see them on the show. So there are some complications, as one might expect, to the process involved with the installation of surveillance systems on the ranch. There's actually an entire section of the official site dedicated to the transition from the Bigelow area, which is just details the team's assessments and upgrades to the ranch's pre-existing camera and surveillance systems. And they detail, of course, some of the very interesting roadblocks that they met during this period. So described in detail are the upgrades to the camera systems, including the strange events that complicated the installation process. The team was hesitant to disturb the ground, as we've heard many times on the show, due to strange occurrences that supposedly do take place whenever the ground has been broken in the past. So despite these concerns, it was established that in order to upgrade the camera systems sufficiently, network lines and power cables would still need to be laid into the ground. So
yeah,
They had to dig
they
again.
decided they did have to dig. And this is where our boy Thomas, the superintendent, comes back in. So he describes both trenches that they dug at this point were between 4 and 6 inches wide and varied in depth between 18 inches to 36 inches. So Thomas needed some couplers and supplies during digging, so he left the ranch to run to town, and he was gone for approximately 2 hours. When he returned, he found that about 20 feet of trench had been filled in on both trenches, close to the fence, that separated the field from the command center. There were cows in the field, and there were cow tracks in the area, but not in the location of the trenches. These had been filled in to the top and leveled off. Although it could be speculated that the cows had disturbed the earth in the general vicinity, there was no apparent explanation for how the trenches had been filled in. And because the cameras were being replaced during this exercise, there were no operating cameras to capture how the trenches were filled in.
And
As an experiment.
that goes back to that, like, taunting or, like, something messing with them. Like, yeah.
So the fuck, like, you're just going to fill it, like, dug a hole and you're going to fill it in? Not on my watch. So, as an experiment, Thomas redug the filled-in portion and placed the conduit into the trench. He then left the trench open to see if the cows were responsible and whether they would do it again. While the cows did come back up and congregate in the area around the open trenches, while they did step into the trenches and knock dirt into the open trench, they did not come anywhere near filling in the trench and leveling it off. So, to this day, it still remains a mystery as to who or what filled in the trenches. As far as the mud hole, Thomas will tell you, it's just another example in a very long list of events that seem to lend credence to the saying, bad things happen when you dig on Skinwalker Ranch. All right. So we've covered, I think to exhaustion, the history, the cast, the science, everything. We've set our groundwork. So let's talk about the experiments that they then dove into in order to, and I'm talking about the Fugall era as opposed to the Bigelow era, which we've talked about. So, Bret, do you want to, outlandish theory has been covered to exhaustion, so for those of us looking for a more scientific answer, let's explain some of the phenomena that occurs here. And I'll let Bret dig into the adamantium phase 1 activities.
So the adamantium phase 1 activities is phase 1 being implementation, which would have been April 2016 to March 2017, which would be established regular drone surveillance, new survey of entire property assemblage, installed new security personnel and ranch management, established relationship and dialogue with tribal leaders and BIA, which I'm guessing the tribe or that's nearby. Reviewed,
no idea what BIA means.
reviewed soil studies, comprehensive site inspection, historical research, site visits with historically significant stakeholders, infrared-enabled motion detection cameras. So it looks like this initial phase 1 is just getting set up to know what's going on around you. And
I want to say it's Bureau of Indian Affairs, probably. I can't find it yet, but that sounds right. But yeah, so they're talking about the steps they took to set this up and try to do it correctly, right? So putting new security on the range, all this shit.
So phase 1 continues to an event that happens, the Mesa UFO incident, which is June 15, 2016. You have photographic evidence. You have the metadata of like how it was recorded. Multiple witnesses on record. Historical flight data shows no commercial or private air traffic at that time with the time and date Zulu stamp. That's just, yeah, that's weird. If you have something flying.
So they immediately start documenting. Right.
So another phase 1 event that occurred, so once they had all this, items set up, ready to record and know what's going on around them, in October 4th, 2016, there's photographic evidence and later 3 witnesses. Metadata was on a Nikon camera, multiple witnesses on record. Historical flight data shows no commercial or private air traffic at the time with the timestamp. And it's a solid craft moving at split-second speeds. And we're going to be putting this, I believe, in the blog for people to
all
view.
Of this will be in the blog.
Yep. So you see the pictures, you can see the data. Another event is the ranch pasture UFO incident in Zoom. 3 eyewitnesses with transcribed accounts, all individuals that are unrelated, first-time meeting. Brandon Fugel and other witnesses are on record. Historical flight data shows no commercial or private air traffic at that time and date stamp. A solid silver or gray craft observed moving erratically above the mesa, not captured on video or via photography. So that's all word of mouth, looks like, for that one. Another event that happened was electromagnetic incidents, or EMI. That was through October through December of 2016. So this is all happening pretty fast in the time frame. Like, it's not like a break or years. Like, there's stuff going on.
And they're having to categorize these, obviously, into UFO sightings versus electromagnetic incidents. And we don't have to read each of these because it's just times and dates. Let's talk about electronic malfunctions, who the reporting individuals were, who the witnesses were, where they occurred at. Obviously, we have Homestead 3, Homestead 2. We have the ranch house. In this area, we have Eric Barr, Jim Morris, Brandon Fugel, all reporting these incidents where, and when we talk about electromagnetic incidents, for those of you who aren't aware, we're talking about camera display malfunctions, spontaneous sudden battery depletion. We're talking about extreme malfunction, even damage to multiple types of electronic devices. Like there's one where multiple iPhones, H4n recorders, alkaline batteries, boom microphones, all these things just were either completely depleted or permanently damaged by electromagnetic events.
And this will also happen with going to some of these sites where the cattle mutilations are. Sometimes they used to have to run wire or power, external power out there because batteries would just die getting close to these carcasses.
Yep. And then we did mention this briefly earlier about the acute medical events that multiple people have experienced while doing research on the ranch. So numerous accounts involve multiple individuals experiencing acute medical issues, and they're comprehensively documented in detail from the phase 1 period. In the interest of protecting the privacy of the individuals involved, details were not disclosed in that presentation. But some of the symptoms that were reported were things like vertigo, nausea, perception-altering experiences, temporary paralysis, auditory impairment, and hospitalization. So we're having multiple people experiencing
like
acute
in one of the
stress.
episodes,
Really
what's his name,
weird.
Travis, they find like some sort of cave of some sort. And when he goes in there, he immediately starts getting vertigo and stuff. And he's like, really, yeah, I remember that. And then there was two other men. I believe there's two other men inside with him. One was actually a little bit deeper in, and nothing happened to him. He was fine. So it kind of takes me back to that whole, like, you know, like it's messing with them, but it's also like picking and choosing who, you know what I mean? Because like what that guy Thomas, he had that thing happen to him twice.
So
it's kind of like, yeah.
So we could kind of like do some hypothesizing here, and so one, obviously, as they call it, the exotic explanation is something sentient, is picking and choosing essentially victims to terrorize during these events. There are other possible explanations, such as
that's true.
Medical predispositions.
That's true.
Enhanced sensitivity in one person. For example, with Thomas, there could have already been a latent tumor of some kind that was adversely affected. There could have been any number of medical things that were just impacted by that strong radiation or electromagnetic field or whatever it was that did instigate that medical emergency. Same thing with Travis Taylor. Something could have pre-existed, or he could have had some kind of sensitivity already that could have then been impacted, whereas somebody else might not have had that. So that's where my mind goes, because yes, it is very tempting to immediately jump to, oh my God, he was attacked specifically. That satisfies that little drama-seeking.
But at the same time, like you said, it could be a prior medical condition or something. So, you know,
Well, and I also think it comes down to energies too. Like you talk about, like a sentient being, or you know, like some higher consciousness going on, knowing what's going on all over the ranch and things like that. You know, whether that goes back to, you know, cursed lands, or, you know, something that we don't understand that's living, like, or maybe not living, like we don't know. I mean, there's but what I mean with energies is like maybe those people, like you said, are more susceptible to certain frequencies or something, like would cause, you know, like a medical illness to exacerbate or show itself or be worse, you know, just being around that energy or that, you know, frequency.
Well, and it's something that I think of a lot, because I have personally for me, I have tinnitus really bad. I have a blown eardrum from work years ago. And so sometimes I will have weird adverse reactions to sounds that other people don't, and to the point where sometimes I'll get sick, I'll get vertigo, I'll get nausea. And other people will not be having that same reaction. So of course, in my mind, I'm like trying to find parallels of, like, you know, maybe you never know, because your brain and your, you know, balance system, your inner ear, is a complex system of things keeping you from experiencing that vertigo and keeping your equilibrium in check. So any number of things could really affect that. Even things that you cannot consciously hear, or that you might not be aware of hearing, like infrasound. That's one of the many, to kind of go off on a tiny tangent, one of the many like theories about Bigfoot is that they communicate in infrasound, and that they are able to produce an infrasound wave, which is able to artificially produce feelings of nausea, dread, panic, fear, and it creates strong emotional reactions in people, even though they cannot actually, they can hear it, they just don't realize they can hear it. It can have an adverse effect on your like physiological well-being, your psyche. You're going to be experiencing things that your mind might say, that's got to be paranormal, because you don't understand the way that you're feeling. Whereas infrasound can have adverse reactions.
I just feel like people sometimes feel like it's easier to explain, oh, it's paranormal, this is why I feel this way. Like you said earlier, you know, versus, well, because I do feel like sometimes I'll get dizzy out of nowhere, and I know it's something that I'm like hearing, because I could feel the dizziness. Like, it's weird to describe it. Like, it comes from the ears. So it's like, okay, I know it's something. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I just walk into something and I'm like, oh crap, like what the fuck, you know? Yeah, exactly. Like you feel
it's
it
like
and stuff. And then
acoustic
some
pressure.
people, they just be like, oh, it's paranormal. I'm being haunted. It's like, no, not necessarily. I mean, you're just, something's wrong with you, you know, like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like me. That's exactly my perspective on everything. Is like there's something physiological happening, or something in your environment that you can't sense in the way that you can normally see, hear, taste, touch, smell things, and therefore it's magic, right? Like no, there's something. There's a lot of scientific explanations for things that aren't fucking ghosts. I wish that there was a little bit more proof of if ghosts are real, but I do believe that most, if not all, paranormal encounters are from an environmental stressor of some kind that is impacting our bodies that we cannot fully understand, whether our brains can't understand it or we're just not aware of it in that way, like infrasound. We're hearing it, but we don't realize we're hearing it, kind of thing.
No, I believe in both. Like I do believe in the paranormal and everything. I do believe in ghosts and all that stuff, but I also believe that there is, like, I want to find an explanation first, and if I can find the explanation, then you know what I mean. But if I can't, then I'm just going to go to that, But if I all of a sudden walk in somewhere and I feel like, oh, I'm like, okay, I know for a fact a ghost and just passed by me. It's like something wrong with my fucking ears or something, So it's like,
there is a famous quote that I love by one of my childhood heroes, Sherlock Holmes, where he tells Watson, he's like, well, when you have eliminated the probable,
which is true,
whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And that's kind of the basis for UFO exploration and study, I guess. But real quick, we're going to touch on the Phase 2 instrumentation activity and deployment. Brett, you want to take that?
Yeah, so for the instrumentation, activity, and deployment, this is some of the more equipment that they would put down and use. Their particular emphasis is the correlation of the individual metrics with one another, with observable events with subjective experiences of participants. Special note, customized instrumentation has been developed for use at the ranch. Built to specifications as directed by Eric Bard, and proprietary software and hardware modifications have been deployed. So a FLIR camera system, which is infrared, night vision goggles, electrostatic magnetic radio frequency devices, infrasonic detectors, vector Gauss-meter, electromagnetic transient detectors, ion counters, software definable radio, or an SDR, near field seismometers, 16 camera security system with continuous remote monitoring, including low light infrared and infrared sensitive cameras. This is all stuff I would have, if I was the owner before this, or if I had this ranch, like I would, first thing first, I would beef all this up. I would have all this security.
Well, absolutely. And honestly, they did, but you have to think Bigelow bought this place in the 90s. And at the time, he was funding and using what was state-of-the-art equipment for that era. It's just that technology has advanced so much. And for those of you who aren't aware, a Gauss-meter is, I believe it's what they use to measure the flux of magnetic fields, essentially. Because I know some of that shit sounded like word salad for those who are not scientists. Like flux? What's the noise, Brett? What's the noise?
I think that was me. I was moving something right here real quick. I'm sorry. My bad. I was trying to be as quiet as possible. So
I was like staring at Brett like, what the fuck?
She just assumes it's me.
It's okay. Your headphones are too good at this point. So we're going to hit on some random shit that I didn't even know where else to throw in this outline. Like, Bigfoot has been spotted on Skinwalker Ranch by one of the NIDS
Isn't there a picture of it or something like that? Because I know one of the pictures you sent me, it looked like it was Bigfoot. Or so, like, it was something. Oh, God. Let me see if I can find it.
Which one was that? No, I mean, so this is another interesting story because I wouldn't even say this was Bigfoot, this story that they're talking about. So one of the NIDS investigators claimed to spot a creature one night that very much resembled the American hominid, known as Bigfoot. Colm Keller, who's the biochemist who co-wrote the book that we've talked so much about, he spotted the creature spying on him from a nearby tree approximately 50 yards away. After he fired a shot off at the beast, it quickly disappeared. And then, inspecting where Bigfoot had stood, he discovered deep tracks in the snow around 6 inches in diameter that strangely included claw marks as if from a bird of prey.
Like how it says it was spying on him. Like, that's what it's doing.
This is a really interesting story because there's like, I think it's the same story that I'm thinking of where they just saw two eyes in the tree and they physically saw something in the tree. And they did find some really strange tracks that were like large ovals with like two protruding claw marks from the rear. Like, and they only found 2 total of these tracks and they were not together. They were separate. Like, they were like 20 feet apart. And another fun fact, I don't know, I think people have heard of this organization, which is the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. It's founded by Tom DeLonge, who is the co-founder of Blink-182, the rock band. So,
punk band.
What's really interesting is that he has put a lot of time and effort and work into kind of legitimizing this institute, and he's hired a lot of people that were ex-employees of Bigelow and or NIDS. They do a lot of exploration in the same vein of NIDS and the Skinwalker Ranch kind of thing. I don't know a shit ton about them. It's just really kind of little fun fact. And then another fun fact is that Post Malone visited the ranch February 2021. I've got a photo of him, this Post Malone with like his big fucking long gun standing next to Brandon Bugle, and they're like peace signs, like in one of the homesteads. I'm like, this guy's wild. What a trip. And then another one I threw in here is just a copy pasta from the website I was telling you about yesterday, where they tell you how to summon a skinwalker, and it's just fucking funny as shit.
How to summon a skinwalker? Yeah,
let me read this to you. Again, I want to make clear that when you click on this link, it's just a completely unformatted HTML website in black with white letters, and it's like a forum type post. I've no author, nothing.
Those are the most truthful websites from what I found.
I don't believe that at all. You can say whatever you want with no consequence. So this guy, this unknown author says, first find a power spot. Ley lines. Where they meet is called a power spot. You'll feel different there. Go to the center, draw a circle in the ground with your finger. Then draw arrows outside the circle, pointing towards the center. Draw the arrows at north, east, south, and west. After that, cut yourself. Use your blood to fill the lines you drew. The blood has to connect so the circle makes sure basically no gaps for the lines. He's terrible, terrible author. When finished, sit back and wait. Oh shit, almost forgot. It has to be at dusk when the sun is almost gone. This guy's high as well, I'm just saying. Now, when he comes, he may come in wolf, coyote. Have a clear mind and only concentrate on what you want. If you stay till midnight and see nothing, go home and go to sleep. If this happens, make sure you have his payment. What? If you don't have his payment, you'll have 24 hours from when you summoned him. If this happens, get his payment or you'll be the payment. At this point, you will have headaches and a small bump on your head. Your dreams will be
right.
This sounds like you're dealing with a mob.
And only he can remove the bump. And the bump cannot be removed by doctors. I don't care who you get as a doctor, because if it's removed, you will die. All caps, no shit, you will die.
And I like how U is the letter U.
You. Normally, if you would have to put the skinwalker's name in the circle, but in your case, you don't know any of them, so you won't know which one comes. That would be dangerous for you. Good luck.
Okay.
Just because there was so much science before this, I wanted to throw in this absolute
I don't know why I got a visual
fireball.
when you talk about like the circle and everything. I just got a visual of SpongeBob when they're trying to, stop the sea bear from attacking. You have to draw the circle and stuff. You have to do. I don't know why I got that visual in my head right now. Like just put the circle. Yeah.
That's pretty much where we're at with this.
Oh my gosh.
So there is infinite information out there, and some of it is as wild as what I just read to you. I had to end it on a little lighthearted note there, give you a little fucking crazy for your day. But for me, what I crave in learning and knowing about these situations and these locations, such as the Uintah Valley Basin, is the credible, verified science, the high technology, the exhaustible, documentation. Exhaustive, whatever. That's what I want to see in order for me to believe anything that someone's trying to tell me about this shit. I'd love to hear from you guys. I have talked more than enough on this outline. I need to vape.
Well, you should. I mean, this is your outline. It was a labor of love. You put a lot of time and effort into it. And again, there's a lot in this outline that we kind of went over. We kind of picked the most interesting parts to us and brushed over them. The more in detail will all be on the blog. So if you want to know more stories or go more in depth on like some of the techniques or the equipment that they use or what they found or pictures, like definitely check out the blog. There's no doubt that there's something going on at this site and has been for a very long time. Definitely the veil is closer between worlds or dimensions because it's just stuff happens on a very frequent basis there. And
or there's a strange electromagnetic field that is drawing unknown. I don't know about any thin veils, buddy. Let's calm down with the tinfoil hats.
Well, no, but I'm saying we don't know what it is. I mean, they're doing their research and they're trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of things it could be and a lot of things it cannot be.
So some of the popular theories thrown out there have been, there's a lot of talk about portals on the ranch. And that is such a tough thing to say out loud because then you come into all sorts of questions like, what the fuck is a portal? What do you mean? What defines a portal? What is your parameters for a portal?
What can enter and exit it?
Right. And how do you know you're actually observing or talking about a portal versus some kind of other anomaly? Obviously, unique. The geography of this location is unique. You don't know. Go, Brett. Go.
In and out. 20 minutes, Morty.
20 minutes tops. Come back to sobbing and crying.
I mean, like they use the portals all over in
that's like me to any rookie. He'll be in and out, 20 minutes tops. The rookie starts comes back crying, covered in blood and piss.
Is that what you said? No, that's when you park at a Quick Trip.
No, Quick Trips are safe. 7-Elevens are the fucking danger zone, man.
Yeah, that's true.
My thing, what I do find interesting too, is that, like you said, it is a very unique place, and like you had mentioned yesterday about when they had drilled like a hole inside the mesa. And it was like almost perfectly, circled the rock. It just kind of rolled in there. And I noticed they were describing some of the metal that they found when they were drilling there. How like on one side it was one particular type of metal, and on the other side it was something else, and it was very, very thin. And Travis was like, "Well, how the hell does that even happen?" So it makes you wonder, like, what is in there, and what kind of intelligence does it have, if any? Yeah. Which I feel like it does, because it almost seems like it's purposely trying to prevent them to find or discover something. But then again, it kind of taunts them a little, like, "Hey, I'm going to give you some. Oh, nope, here's some vertigo." It's like something. Oh, your battery just died. Like this. Yeah. Right.
It's like cat and mouse. It's like like a ranch cat, it's playing with a rodent, until it finally kills it, have its adrenaline go down and messes with it before it actually kills it.
Mm-hmm. You certainly get that impression watching the show. Like even Dragon was looking at the camera. He's like, "This."
And not just that, but I'm looking at some of
this
the
ranch
pictures that you sent me, which I'm assuming they're linked, which I do recommend everyone take a look at. The skin. It's microscopic. The tissue. Yeah, exactly.
Talking about the effect of the microwave rays.
Like I've never in my life. I mean, I'm not in the medical field or anything, but I've never seen anything like that before. It's just it's weird, and it doesn't make me want to go vegan. But I'm just saying, like, it's just really weird. Like just how
it makes you, and you can get they never explicitly state it in that particular report that they are, but the implications are clear that they are kind of chasing down this this train of thought that intense microwave radiation is behind a lot of the phenomena as far as the deaths and mutilations of animals potentially. And that was exactly what I was thinking when I told you about the mutilation I was reading about yesterday. The lack of blood, there's no explanation for that, because even if you were to fucking put a steak in the microwave and blast that motherfucker, the blood isn't going to disappear. Matter does not.
And the fact
existing.
That it's not there, it's like
it goes somewhere.
How? I mean,
so
it's The only time I've ever heard of something remotely close to that would be the Black Dahlia, which I know that's another, it's another story. But she was, that would be a good one actually, which I
That'd be
absolutely
a
love.
fun
But
episode.
she was found completely drained of blood. You know what I mean? But then again, we also know that obviously somebody actually did that to her. But that's here and there, But here in this case, it's like, what machines, what do they have that can do that with just a little tiny hole, because I see
No
yeah,
sound,
yeah,
a
like
one
how, what,
ton,
and a cow,
livestock.
and
Like,
these aren't like
Mm-hmm.
little tiny creatures, these are freaking, fucking huge ass creatures. How is it? And then they didn't make a sound, like it must have been quick in and out, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah.
Unbelievably quick. So that's why people have put forth the theory
Mm-hmm.
again that alternate dimensions / portals, right? People are like, oh, well, a portal must have opened up. Some, extraterrestrial technology sucked that thing up. There's one interesting story, and I can't remember who told the story, but it's talking about how, I can't remember if it was Terry Sherman or somebody else, who saw a cow laying down in distress, went out to look at it, was really alarmed to find that the cow had 2 broken legs. So he doesn't know what to do. He's like, I might have to put this thing down. So goes back to his house for his gun, comes back out. The cow
Oh
is now 50 feet
yes,
from the
I remember
original
hearing
location,
about
and it
that
has
one.
4 broken
I
legs.
want to say it was the manager. I think it was
nope,
the
I'm
manager
out.
who said it. Actually, I'm not a. I think Jim Morris or something like that.
The current manager? Or
I think it was him. I
was
do
that him?
not
I
quote
could
me
not
on
remember
that.
the
I
source of
think it
that
was
story.
him,
It's
but
just a
I'm
really
not
interesting
100%
story.
sure. But I do remember hearing about that, which that honestly, like that just tripped me out. Like, how is that even physically possible?
Because, of course, his theory was immediately, well, a spaceship came, took the cow up, and dropped it from a high height, broke 2
Oh
of its
yeah.
legs, came back, picked the cow up again, dropped it again, broke and now all 4 of its legs. And that was his, untouchable theory that he put
Airborne
forth about,
cows.
like, that's, I mean, I guess my question becomes, why? What is it? Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's go down this little happy trail through the poppy field, get a little high here.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens are abducting the cows and performing experiments. Why?
What if it's not experiments? What if it's like choice cuts and it's like a delicacy for their diet? Like, we
Maybe they
don't
know
The
know.
something
rectum?
about the
I don't
nutritious
know.
of the
I can't
rectum,
judge
cow's
them.
rectum that we
I don't
don't. I
know.
don't know.
Maybe that's good for them and bad for us. I don't know.
The
Like,
ears, eyeballs, tongue, rectum, and reproductive organs. So again, if you're thinking about
there's certain animals or, fish or whatever that we only use certain parts that we cook or eat, or, what I mean? Like, it could be one of those weird kind of things. I'm just
it comes
spitballing here.
down
Like,
to, so why cows? Why domestic animals as opposed to wild animals? And if wild animals, have we found anything? Mutilations?
if I was that advanced in hunting, I would go for domesticated animals either, because they're already in a pen, they're already contained, they're all together. You don't have to like hunt them, like they're right there.
It's pretty fucking clear that
It's
whatever's
low hanging
taking
fruit.
these
Well, and
gives no shits
maybe it
about
could be too
hunting
that
things.
because these are
So
domesticated animals, obviously somebody's watching over them, so they're going to keep count. So that's why maybe there is more reports on domesticated animals like cows versus wild, because no one's really out in the wild counting. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's what I question as well. I'm like, then again, okay,
And then it could be
we're
like
still
an
in the poppy field.
impulse buy. I mean, like, you go to the gas station, you're up at the counter, you're going to pay for some gas, and right there they have like the gums or the mints or the impulse buy, like something you quickly like, oh yeah, I'm hungry or I want that. Like, it could be like an impulse buy, when they're doing their thing, or they
like
go into these places of
beef,
power and there's like a domesticated
carne
cow. It's easy
asada, you
pickings.
know.
It's like it's on the what it's on
Well,
the what a deal bin.
taking it a little further, I love that analogy for you. I'm just going to glaze over it a little bit. Taking it a little further, let's look at the parts of the cattle that are being... So first of all, we have cattle disappearing entirely, like the full cow gone forever. We also have these multiple mutilations. What's disappearing from the cow? We've got soft organs, the tissue of the face. We've got the eyes, tongue. We've got ears. We've got reproductive organs, the rectum, the blood. Is if you're really trying to stretch here, what could we do with those things? Say we're an alien race and we're studying these animals.
But
is it possible that, yeah.
But what I'm getting at is that they're so advanced. How many of these do you need to decapitate to find out the information you need? Like if you go back to the 60s, just the thousands of cows or cases of cow mutilations that have been reported.
Allegations.
Okay, but I'm just saying the amount that have been brought to like the senators and like where the FBI got involved with looking into this. Like when you go at the case volume on this. If they're so intelligent, that kind of leads me away from they're not researching that more of it's like a food source, because a food thing you're going to have to recur and use.
It actually makes me wonder if they are not potentially. This is probably the wildest thing you ever hear out of my mouth. Attempting some kind of genetic engineering or cloning experiments with the parts that they're taking in order to maybe perhaps genetically modify these animals for a food source. In an environment where they might not otherwise survive. You can take a cow, you can grab a cow and feed yourself. Like there's infinite cows that can go fucking duck. They don't have to just take parts of the cow. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they have on multiple occasions just taken the whole cow. Cow's fucking disappearing.
And then that's where I'm getting to the point, like like fine dining restaurant. You're only eating a certain cut of a lobster or a certain cut. Like.
Do you really think that aliens are coming here to just take the cow rectum?
I have no fucking
How would you
clue.
order that? Can I have a butthole well done, please?
Cow ears, eyes.
Yeah.
I want to
butthole medium rare. I like that smoky taste.
Deep fried sphincter.
I don't kink shame, Brett. Whatever you and your boyfriend are into, I'll allow it. I don't care. It's fine. It's no big deal. You and your top knot.
No, but it is very interesting though. Like, because in one hand you could say, well, is it a food source? Because why else would they take just those certain parts? And the fact that how it almost kind of feels like that because like they took it out so delicately without like it, without any trouble, if you will. But then at the other hand, but
it's
the other
targeted.
hand, it's like
it's wanted.
It makes me think that there is some kind of. It makes me wonder if there maybe is some kind of genetic engineering process going on where they do need certain parts of the animal and not other parts. And then it makes you wonder, if so, what are they attempting to do? Because again, they could take any animal, but they're choosing a livestock animal, an animal that has potential to produce meat, right? Okay, so the point of that is sustenance. Mm-hmm. They're also clearly doing experimentation of some kind, and with almost surgical precision here.
And that's also an assumption that it could be for sustenance. I mean, it could be that they're able to use those organs or body parts that they take. Maybe they're able to use that as some kind of fuel source or some kind of specialty. Like we don't know. Like maybe that's something that helps like with their equipment or their technology. Like, we don't know this.
Well, it's all assumption.
Yeah,
it's all assumption, dude. That's what the whole point is.
I'm just throwing some plot twists in there, like because we don't know. Like we could assume, because for us, we think like, oh, that's a delicacy. That could be something to eat. It could be something completely different that they need that to create like a different type of fuel.
Fuel source seems unlikely because of. It seems that if it was. It seems like they would need more.
I mean, maybe they figured it's
that could explain why there's so many
instances. There's not that many.
I don't think that's not how it works.
And there you go. See, I don't believe that there are
greenhouse gases.
Think about too is that in the world in general, there have been so many. I don't even know exactly how many, but there's been reports of actual people, human beings being abducted as well. So my question would be, what, if anything, is related to Skinwalker Ranch with these abductions? You get what I'm saying? Like, is it the same species? Is it not? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, is this particular group doing this for this reason? Is that particular group getting people from, because in Alaska, from what I read, there's so many abduction stories there that, it's something about like the owl or something. That's just another topic. But anyways, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many, it makes me wonder, like, okay, so what's the connection here? Like, what's going on? And then You know what? And then another thing too is like if the government's like you had
I
mentioned
know.
yesterday, they're slowly like loosening up the grip with, um, kind of admitting that there is life outside the universe. It's like, okay, we've heard stories about the Men in Black. There's celebrities. I forgot his name. The one that came out in Ghost Busters. He actually said he did encounter Men in Black, and there's videos of the alleged Men in Black. Why are they not involved? What the hell is going on? I've never heard of a Men in Black or any type of that kind of agency that was involved with the Skinwalker Ranch. However, that is, I understand that's a conspiracy theory, but it just like once you like kind of get into it, you can't really stop. So it just kind of brings up more questions and stuff like, okay, why is it the whole government involved? Why is it not big? And then why are they broadcasting it now? Why didn't they do that back in the 90s? Like what the fuck's going on? You know? Right.
Well, people are more sci-fi saturated now, and it's a little easy for
True.
people to understand in the video game era, sci-fi superhero movies and stuff. Where and then you got crazy stuff going on in the world where this kind of slips in with other
True.
headlines and
Or
it just
maybe they're
kind of
trying to
gets
distract us.
overlooked.
I don't know.
So,
But that's another topic. You know?
So I found an article that I was reading earlier. So since we brought this up, I'll read this really quick. And it's talking about a 2021 press conference, which was held for like the first time in 50 years, where they kind of openly talked about they're looking into UFOs kind of thing. And one of those sections in here is called transparency versus secrecy. So again, they made sure to say it's the first public hearing on UFOs in over 50 years, included testimony from a guy named Ronald Moultrie, the Pentagon's top intelligence official. And he noted the competing needs for transparency and secrecy in the hearing. So he noted that he's a science fiction fan and that simple human curiosity means that we want to know what's out there, just like you want to know what's out there. But he added that his top goal is to keep U.S. military personnel and bases safe. We are also mindful of our obligation to protect sensitive sources and methods, he said in opening remarks. Our goal is to strike that delicate balance, one that will enable us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel. We do not, this is exactly what I said yesterday, we do not want potential adversaries to know exactly what we see or understand, he said later, which was followed by a closed-door classified session. So we've got the opening remarks for public and then a closed-door session.
That's the session I want to hear. The closed-door one.
And this is what, and he's talking about the, what were the numbers? 143 assessed in a report that Travis Taylor was working on with the UAP task force. So there's some little threads connected here, but a lot of what they say is non-remarks like that, where they're like, well, we need to keep everybody safe, but also we want to keep your trust. It's like, okay, buddy. When it comes to UFO abductions, I think we need to save that for another time because there's no human abductions reported in the Uintah Valley Basin. In this context, I don't know if there ever has been. I'm sure there has. But that does bring you to other questions about this kind of thing. Like you were mentioning about what's in the mesa, my brain immediately was a fucking giant spaceship buried in the mesa. Like the metal that she's taught, we'll make sure to link the video for you guys, but in season 3 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, they do drill into the mesa there on Skinwalker Ranch and locate a strange metal, which I wish I had gotten the scientific names for the metals. I'm sorry. On one side, it was very thin, almost like a sheet metal type of substance, and on one side it had a very rare metal used in like electronics, and the other side had another very rare metal used in like solar panels. And there's no explanation whatsoever. So obviously that is not a naturally constructed item because there's nothing that's going to put paper thin metal with 2 different materials, one on each side. Like that's somebody constructed that. It's a artificially created item, right? What's it doing in there? Fuck if we know. Want to know. I want to know. Somebody tell me. Do we have any final thoughts? I know the truth is out there. We ran long. Sorry, guys. This is just such a fascinating cluster of subjects.
All the deep dive information is going to be in the blog on the website.
I'm probably going to polish up and just post my entire outline for you guys because I don't want to cut anything out. There's a lot that we did not cover, but I will post the full massive thing for you, and I will include a shit ton of photos that I've collected, and try to make this easy for you guys to follow.
And I know
there's so much.
Upcoming, we still have Bigfoot on the slate. We have Flat Earth. We're also going to be getting into some abduction stories, and you're going to go into true crime and spearhead that, KC.
Yeah.
I really love true crime. It makes sense to me. Human psychology, forensic science. I would love to do actually some episodes on like the origins of like forensic.
I would love that.
Pathology and the DNA. One of the books, my nerd is really showing, a book that changed my life. Every Contact Leaves a Trace, which is a book on, again, the origins of like DNA research and fingerprints and shit like that. Locard's Principle of Exchange is essentially what it's about, which is a forensic theory that means you can't walk through a room without leaving. I mean, at a microscopic level, you're going to have dead skin, hair, transference from your shoes, from your bare feet, from your socks. Every contact leaves a trace. Everything you touch, everything you walk by, everything you breathe on, you are leaving traces on everything. And it's a really fascinating book. It's an older book, but it's what kind of got me really interested in like forensics in general, but especially like psychology, pathology, DNA evidence, fingerprint testing, things that were considered a pseudoscience up until like the early 90s, maybe late 80s. Really fascinating shit. I would love to get into that. I don't know.
No, and you know what? I agree with you right there too, because like, I find it very fascinating, and I always wondered why certain people, like you have certain serial killers that you could understand why they did what they did, because of their past everything, but then you have other ones that you're kind of like, dude, you kind of had it made. Why the fuck? Why like Ted Bundy? You know what I mean? It's like, I get that he had some sort of trauma, or maybe when he was younger, but it's like not to that point. So it's like, what triggered him to do what he did? Is it like a spiritual thing? Is it like a psychological thing? Like, I'm like, stuff like that really gets to me.
I believe that he is the definition of a true clinical psychopath, which is an often misused term in just the genre in general. It's a clinical term, which is very different from a sociopath or any other kind of mental illness. A true psychopath is somebody like that who you would look at and say, there's no reason for you to do these things. You have it made. A very cold, calculated. It's essentially somebody who is never had and never will have a conscience. Whatever trigger in the brain exists that keeps somebody from experiencing emotion, they do not have it. So they are able to do things that for us as people with consciences, we would be unable to fathom doing, because we can imagine things like the guilt and the emotions we would feel, whereas this person does not have that self-check barrier at all. There's nothing in his mind that goes, I would feel guilty if I did that.
I'm down if you're ever.
I would love to get
have me
back.
I am more than happy.
Same.
Girl, I'm so down. I got you.
Let's do night terrors, girl.
That's like,
All right, girl. All right. Thank you guys for sticking with us through what I believe is our longest episode yet.
Yes,
almost 2 hours long. We do need to try to wrap this up here. I'm going to skip Florida them on these 2 episodes because it's for time. Brett and Yvette, do you have any final
really
thoughts
excited
on our
to see
Skinwalker
what
Ranch
comes
mysteries?
out like towards the end. Like, will there be a season 2? What proof? What evidence? What information are they going to come out with? Is there life outside Earth? Is there some sort of paranormal thing? What's going on? I'm really excited to see if, God, hopefully, we get any information like that.
There is a season 2 currently, and season 3 is currently running. I have not been able to watch season 3 yet, but if you guys haven't, I strongly recommend you go check out the show. There's also the book for me is equally fascinating. Definitely more of a hearsay type thing where you're listening to people's firsthand accounts. Still really good shit. And it's from the Bigelow era, so not going to cover things that are talked about on the show other than maybe in passing. Brett, what are your final thoughts?
I think it's really interesting. Like, there's definitely something going on, and like kind of like you guys, I look forward to seeing what they decide to share with us. So, It's definitely something that we don't understand or have all the answers yet, but I look forward to seeing what it is.
Same. All right. Well, hey, No Fly Zoners. Super glad to have you stick with us. Please go check out our website. I worked really fucking hard on it. There's some secret links on there. You can dig around and find some little Easter eggs that I haven't really formally announced yet. And look forward to another episode of Night Terrors with Yvette guest starring coming up soon. We'll have to get together and figure out what we're going to talk about. Maybe a little forensic psychology for us nerds out there. Bret, thank you for coming to this session less high than yesterday. I do appreciate that. That's what I appreciate about you.
Thanks, sis.
All right.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks. This was fun.
Yvette, you're an angel. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
On that note, we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.